Okay, in case you hadn't noticed, everything is absolutely bloody awful. I'm not going to list the things because if you haven't noticed, whack your head out of the sand and have a peek round. It's horrendous, right? And it feels to me like for months and months and months now I've been pointing things out that were a bad idea, that were being done badly, wrong, ridiculous things that were being done. You know, like several months ago I pointed out that Dido Harding was the worst possible person to put in charge of the track and trace setup. And now the Conservatives are going, perhaps we should sack Dido Harding. And you're like, but we knew months ago that she was wholly unsuitable for the job. And now you're like, look, we're very bright and clever. We've decided to fire her. And replace her with what? We don't know. It would be so easy to just get dragged into a complete vortex of how awful things are and how badly the situation has been screwed up. And I want to try and avoid that. I want to try and be positive and constructive. So here is a suggestion. The case rate is going through the roof. We have to have another lockdown. And at the same time, another lockdown isn't going to work because we already have a huge national case of what's called behavioural fatigue. Right? We've been told if we behave in a certain way, the problem's going to go away. And we've all been doing our best, varying degrees, putting up with all sorts of hardship in order to try and make the problem go away. And the problem hasn't gone away, it's gotten worse. And we're all mentally exhausted from it, financially we're strained from it. It's really, really difficult. We know, for example, that only 11% of people who were asked to self-quarantine actually do it. And while we've got numbers like that, we can't realistically expect the problem to end. And how are we going to improve those numbers when there's no prospect of the problem actually ending, right? So here's my suggestion. And it's radical and it's new and nowhere else has tried this. So, you know, I'm just putting it out there, right? What we do is we declare across the UK that until we have a vaccine and the vast majority of people have been vaccinated, until that point, we will have a really harsh, really strict 2-week lockdown every 2 months. Right, we will schedule it. It will be in the diary. And it's going to be a super tight lockdown. So it acts as a circuit breaker for the virus. The fact that you know when it's coming and you know how long it's going to last make it much less difficult to adhere to. It would mean that you could plan in advance, you could buy in things that you were able to stock up on in advance. It would mean that we could actually have a situation in which only absolute essentials could be bought from the shops, where actually most people could stock up pretty much most of their food in advance. You certainly wouldn't need to have clothes shops open, things like that. Pharmacies could dispense, vital prescriptions to people who haven't been able to get them in advance. But, basically almost nowhere would be open, and we could stop, restaurants, all that kind of stuff, completely close these things down. Factories, building sites, airports, everything, completely close them down. And because it's for a fixed amount of 2 weeks, it would mean that businesses would know when it was going to happen. They could prepare for it. They could even be selling, packages, advanced care packages to take home so that you can enjoy our food at home during the break. Whatever it is, they could be doing business for 6 weeks. And okay, it's still tough to shut down for 2 weeks, but they would know what was coming. Schools could shut down for those 2 weeks, but teachers would know to teach the stuff that needs to be taught in classrooms in the 6 weeks running up to that, and then to give children a package of stuff to take home for their 2 weeks at home. Universities could do the same. Lots and lots of places could do the same. That's the first thing that we should do, and it would be much, much easier to get people to stick to it if they knew when it was coming and how long it was going to last. On top of that, obviously, effective track and trace system. We shouldn't be replacing Dido Harding. We should just be going out to one of the countries that has already successfully done it, somewhere like South Korea, wherever it is, and saying to them, look, please help us out. And a lot of places we know are willing to basically give their system away, and we should just say thank you very much and take one of these systems and implement it fully. Thirdly, the main place that transmission is happening is actually not bars, restaurants, schools. The main place that transmission is happening is within the household. Basically, in shared households, one person gets it, and it's kind of inevitable that other people in the house are going to be exposed to it. It's like you're really lucky if your housemates get it and you don't. So when we have our short, sharp lockdown, what we do is we tell people if they can possibly do so, they should isolate individually or in the smallest possible household. And if they do live in large shared households, we should make those households, first of all, we should, if possible, give them the opportunity to not stay in those households. So we should find alternative accommodation when there's like self-catering facilities, when there's empty hotel rooms. We should say to people, if you would like to isolate away from a large shared household, you can. We'll make that possible. And we should say to those people in large households, particularly when they're not able to separately isolate because there are care needs and so on, we should say you will be the priority for testing. You will be tested as soon as the short, sharp lockdown starts, and then we'll find out as quickly as possible whether whether it's in your house, and then we can try to take those who are not infected and get them to isolate elsewhere with support. We should, of course, be testing right across the spectrum. We should also be saying to key workers who are not able to stop work, for example, hospital workers and so on, that we will provide, wherever possible, accommodation for them near the hospital, near where they're working, near the care facility, so that they don't have to go back to their families. And yes, that'll be tough for 2 weeks, but if we provide for people and make it as easy as possible and make it as comfortable as possible and provide financial support for those that need it, this is totally feasible. We don't know if it would work. This is the only thing. We don't know if it would work. But we do know that the alternatives just won't work. A last-minute, unscheduled lockdown for an unspecified amount of time based on a 3-tier system that already doesn't work and a load of waffle and nonsensical gibberish from Boris Johnson and his advisors who aren't even following it themselves, that's not going to work because people won't stick to it. And not having a lockdown or staying with the 3-tier system, that's what we're doing now, and it's not working. I'm not pulling this idea out of nowhere. It's been discussed by scientists, it's been discussed by behavioural experts, it's been discussed by virologists, and the general consensus is that, hey, it might work. And at this stage, that is honestly the best we've got. So there's my constructive suggestion. I'll go back to being depressed and really angry now. See you next week.